You know what I just got to thinking of? The whole trans women or women crowd who advocate for trans identified males to be permitted into women's shelters and women's prisons. I almost could sympathize and maybe even understand where they were coming from if their advocacy was about the homosexual males, often of color, sex workers who are just trying to survive. I could almost not agree, but understand where they were coming from, because those trans women certainly are vulnerable. The super effeminate homosexual men who transition because it's better culturally for them, I guess, to present themselves as women than as gay men. And who are often survival sex workers and actually vulnerable. I could almost understand that and say, not that they should be allowed into women's prisons and shelters, but that there is a case to be made for their vulnerability. But the gender crowd who screams and yells about trans women or women are so rarely talking about those trans women, and rather they're talking about straight white men, because quite frankly it really seems that straight white violent men are the only ones kicking up a stink about getting into women's prisons and shelters, right? Like, how come when it came to, say, Vancouver rape relief, it was Morgan Ogre who got their funding stripped, a wealthy, white, straight man in a position of political power. In the videos of people protesting at the opening, I think, of the Vancouver Women's Library, it was a bunch of big white dudes. When you hear about such and such inmate being transferred to a women's prison and then they show a photo of the person, it's a big, very masculine, white, heterosexual, and usually violently convicted man. It's not these vulnerable trans women of color who are genuinely vulnerable. It's not them who are putting up the stink. So I can only assume that this stuff directly, like that the gender cult is absolutely patriarchal, and that they want to uphold straight white men getting what they want. What else can be the answer?